The things inside your head, they're only as real as you want them to be. So if you want, you can just decide they're not real.
Decide what's not real, though.
Everything. Everything from before this trip. None of it exists. Not unless you want it to. Take this cup. It doesn't exist. Here, look at me.
This is stupid,
Trust me.
but it's right there.
What is?
Your cup. What's going on?
I'm Kent Turner. I'm the director of programming for the festival. And so please, you can feel free to come on down if you like. We're going to have a Q&A with the directors. So let me introduce first Lauren Walkstein and Christopher Radcliffe, who also wrote the screenplay. And we have the lead actor of the film, James Friedson Jackson. So, okay, let's see how to unpack this film. Oh, well, shall we begin at the very beginning, maybe with the script, with the idea, and maybe how the film came about in your head? I imagine, because there's so much that goes on in, 82 minutes, that maybe at one point it was longer, and then you cut it down?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the script, we made a short film in 2011 that was like the basis for this, and we were just finishing film school, and so we made this short. And the short was also called The Strange Ones, and it basically was just the motel stuff.
Oh.
The stuff that happens at the motel, where it's like these two strangers come to this motel, this thing happens while they're there, and sort of leaves you guessing as to who they are. And you know, I think when we decided to expand it into a feature, the thing that that was so great about the short, and like that people enjoyed about it, and that, like, you know, the thing that we wanted to kind of make sure we didn't that we still kept for the feature, was just the fact that it leaves you guessing, and or it sort of like tells a really compelling story, but like doesn't give you like clear-cut answers about what actually is going on. You just sort of know that something's off. And so figuring out how to do that at feature length is much more difficult, because you can't really sit through a whole feature film not knowing anything about anybody. You know what I mean? Like, you have to reveal some things.
Well, how did you figure that out? Like, what to leave ambiguous, what to explain?
Yeah, well, it took a long time, and it was a constantly shifting kind of equation. Like, the script went through a lot of different versions, you know, like there was the very early versions of the script were a lot about like, at the time, like, it was like a lot of backstory, like sort of what led up to basically the events of this film.
Right.
That we realized we're less interested in that. We want to sort of like, you know, it's not about explaining, you know? And so like, I think somewhat early on in the writing process, we started to think about it as, you know, if the short film sort of was this short sequence, 15 minutes long, that led up to this one reveal or this one question, that the feature would have to be a series of those things. So like every new reveal would have to create a new question.
I see.
And so like, you know, you have like every sort of sequence in the feature sort of is meant to sort of like reveal something, but then also reveal a question. So like that's kind of how we then negotiated sort of keeping that kind of intact, that feel intact on a feature scale.
Now, I hope we have questions, and we do have a microphone for anyone asking a question. Does anyone have one? Oh, good. There's one here. Okay. Don't be shy. Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
First of all, thank you for the movie. I think it was a very good movie. My question is, sorry for my English. The scene when the guy was crashed of the car. Am I right? That means everything before was his dream, so he was in this camp, right?
Let me see. So the question is the car
When-
that's when Sam is hit by the car, correct?
I meant, okay, this is not clear, right?
All right. Well,
The
so
mo-
are you asking if it was a dream sequence?
Yes, I meant the moment when he was crashed the car. So, and
If everything before that was a dream.
yes, before that it was dream
Right.
because
And that he lived on the farm forever.
right.
That is one interpretation.
Okay, what is okay? You're author, so what is your interpretation?
We have, well, it's funny, we get this a lot, and thank you for your question. Chris and I intended to make a film that had multiple interpretations because it was told through the subjectivity of James's character and dealing with and how he dealt with and coped with the trauma of his life. And so there are moments in the story that kind of split, and you're not quite sure, what the truth is. And we made it very clear that, like, for us, we knew exactly what the intention was and what the real answer to that was, but we never wanted to give that to the audience because that ruins their experience of it. And so for us, it was really important that whatever you felt was true is true.
Okay.
I don't know if that's you want to?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So it is true what you believe.
Okay, and another question. Sorry, I have ask a lot. How long was your rehearsals with actors?
James, do you want to answer this?
Yes.
How long were the rehearsals that you did with Alex?
I think they were about 2 hours, but we did it for like 3 days.
Before we were shooting, and then we had a lot of time on set with you guys to work with you before
Yeah.
each scene that we
Oh
shot.
yeah, that was really helpful. I think those lasted about just 5 minutes because it was just each take, or it was each scene. So we really only take 5 minutes. They tell us what we're doing, like you're gonna walk from here to there, or they just wanted to see how it fit, and then they would adjust it. Yeah.
Before shooting?
They only we didn't have a lot of rehearsal time before shooting. We got them together maybe 2 or 3 times before the shooting, but it wasn't so much. We did rehearse specific scenes, but I think the work that Lauren and I wanted to do with James and Alex was more like talking about their characters and getting them sort of to inhabit the sort of vibe and world that we were trying to have an understanding of the same understanding of the characters that we did. So like it was a lot of like more just sort of like discussing the artistic vision of like what we were going for, and less about like actually just doing the lines or anything like that.
And we also really wanted Alex and James to get to know each other on a level where they trusted each other, and so we had them go out, go exploring New York together, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And what did we tell you to do? What was your homework?
I think you told us to create 2 stories of what we actually did and then lie about one.
And not tell us what the lie
Yeah.
was.
And we were both very good at that. And we went golfing, which we actually did do. We went on, I don't remember what it was called, the pier. And there was like this really cool golfing place where there's like, you take an elevator and it goes all the way up, and you can like just sit there and golf, and it was really fun. And
Well, sorry. Well, I just wanted to know, how did they explain the part to you when you first found out about the project?
well, they didn't really explain it to me. I guess they had me audition and they liked what I did, and then, right? Am I right? Yeah, they didn't really explain the part to me as much as see if I could do it.
Sorry, how old are you?
Sorry.
Question for actors.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, just how old is he?
How old am I?
Yeah.
I'm 15 now. I think I don't even know how old
You
I
were
was.
14 when we shot.
Thank you.
I think you did
It was
great
last
job.
year.
It was really great
Thank
job.
you.
Nice. Well, and you're both co-directors, yes? So how does that work out? We have filmmakers in the audience, so they, what's the ingredient in co-directing?
Well, Lauren and I went to film school together, and so we kind of like have a common language about sort of like an understanding of like sort of movies, cinema, like visual storytelling, like the job of a director. We literally come from the same school of like understanding of those topics, and we were very good friends, throughout school, our whole school. We went to Columbia in New York,
Oh, I see.
and we decided to start co-directing sort of at the end of we both still direct individually as well, but like, we just thought it would be fun to co-direct something sort of when we were about to graduate, because we had never done that before, and we were both fans of each other's work, and we both kind of wanted to make something a little darker and edgier, and like kind of that kind of like, when you're in film school, you sort of get inundated with all these rules of storytelling and kind of like screenplay structure and dramatic kind of structure, and like, we wanted to do something that was just sort of like cheap and fast and sort of unfettered by like rules and stuff, and so that's where the short film of The Strange Ones came from, and like I said before, making the short just sort of gave birth to like making the feature as well.
Well, now your film has played at many festivals. What is maybe the strangest question you've been asked about the film at a Q&A?
What's it about?
Oh, and what did you say?
I don't remember.
I didn't understand the movie, or something like that. And I'd say, well,
That's relatively common.
yeah. They'd be like, well, I didn't really understand it. And I said, well, it's kind of up for question, and that's the beauty of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how did you come up with the title, The Strange Ones?
Do you wanna?
Well, the short was called that, and I think the very nature of the movie is about the ambiguity of their relationship, and not really knowing what the relationship is that you're seeing, and kind of having it change the more you watch the movie. Your idea of who these people are to each other changes, and the way that the world sees them is kind of strange, and the fact that you never really know somebody, even if you're so close to them. So I think The Strange Ones kind of came out of that idea of, not giving these characters a label, not giving them a name. They're the strange ones. They're this mystery to people, anyone they meet. And the people they meet along the way are strange ones too.
Right. At one point, I wasn't sure if it was the group home that he stumbles upon, if they were the strange ones. So right, it
Could
does
also be the
change
strange ones.
in the film. Well, James, was there like a scene or a shooting day that is special that you remember? That's what, crazy?
Thank you for asking this question. The funnest, or the most fun scene to shoot was probably the one with the head of the motel woman, that lady.
Okay.
With Emily?
Who was an extraordinary actor. Yeah, Emily.
Yeah.
Because you can just like see the manipulativeness in that scene. Like, he's just completely being super manipulative, and it was just really fun to like get to that point, you know.
And that's also
and
the scene
scare
that you
the shit out
auditioned
of
with.
everyone.
Oh, I see. And no, I did not see the closing credits tonight. Was it? Where was it shot? In New York?
We shot all up the Hudson Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hudson River Valley. So we kind of took a road trip with the film, in the same way that the film is a road trip. The closest we shot to New York City was this, where the farm was shot, is this place called the Yiddish Farm. And that's like, an hour outside of New York. And then The furthest we shot was the Catskills, where we shot the short, and that's about a 3-hour. Yeah,
Oh,
in the motel.
okay. I see, not too far.
And so all up and down. 20?
Oh, how many days of shooting?
20 days.
A month.
Okay.
Months? Is that what you said?
Yes, a question in the white hat.
Hi, so this is for James. So the intricacy between like Nick and Sam and the ambiguity, as you had mentioned about their relationship, was that difficult to portray for you as an actor?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I don't think any acting is. I don't think difficult's the right word for it. I think you're acting. It's not. This is very hard. I mean, I think they can answer this question better. It wasn't difficult to do.
He was really.
I understood where they wanted to go with it, and I thought it was a really, like, it was new, and I thought it was a really good idea. And I thought it was, yeah.
James was like, what really impressed us about James in our first meeting with him in our first audition was like he just sort of was really at ease with the material and like had a really sort of mature kind of understanding of the character and the story, like much more so than any of the other actors his age that we saw. You know, we saw a good handful of like kids that were between like 12 to 17-ish, you know, in that range. And James was like by far like kind of like just had the most sort of like sophisticated and kind of like highest level of comfort with it, and just sort of like also just kind of a innate understanding of like the vibe of it. Like, you know, like he was really good. We would tell people that like he was just really good, and even in the audition with like not really doing too much with it, with just sort of like so much of the movie is just sort of stillness with him and kind of like quiet moments where he's like you sort of feel him reacting even though visually he's not really reacting, and James just has like a natural talent for that kind of thing. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think nothing was uncomfortable with Alex. Like he just made every situation hilarious, and like he's just such a lovable guy. Like I couldn't be uncomfortable around him. So, yeah.
But not too, I mean, but then you would be serious during the takes. I mean, it was all off camera.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He was completely into his work.
Yeah, because that doesn't show. Well, about the music, was there a note that you gave the composer? Was there a certain sound or certain feel that you wanted from the music?
Yeah, the music actually sort of we had like our composer Brian is just like really brilliant, talented musician, and we just had like long kind of like an ongoing conversation with him as we were editing, kind of like what the best sort of tact for the music should be, and kind of like what we realized kind of like all throughout the process was that from the writing to the directing, the shooting, and the editing, and then the music and everything, like we didn't want any one element of the film to push the audience too far in one direction or one interpretation. We wanted everything to hold the same sort of like potent kind of like mystery without an intrigue, but without sort of like leading them down like this is what you should be responding to here, or like whatever. So like we wanted to find like a sound that spoke to a lot of the thematic kind of like elements of the movie. Like it's a little bit of a coming of age movie. It's like a mystery. It's a thriller, but without hitting anything too hard on the head in a way that would kind of like disrupt the audience's kind of the sort of delicate experience we wanted the audience to have.
Is there any other question? Oh, good. Yes, in the light blue. Yes, you. Yes. Oh, it looks a little bluish here. Okay. So everyone heard that. Why does Sam walk into the cave at the end?
So I don't know, we kind of like during the writing of the script and everything, like, I don't know, like, it's hard to sort of give a really succinct answer to that. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, like, we want the movie to be like an emotional experience for people, even if it's like, even if it needs some unpacking on an intellectual level to understand the plot, or to sort of assign very clear kind of like conclusions to anything. We want the emotions and the sort of journey you've been on with this character to be to be felt like clearly, you know. I think like my best answer to that would be that the reason why that's the ending of the movie was because that we felt that was the only place left for him to go.
I see. Okay. Well, oh yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that you? Yes.
First of all, I really love the film, and I love that I'm constantly having to guess, you know, and that I can interpret what's going on. I love that sort of approach, and I really enjoyed it. The performance was really great, by the way.
Thank you.
The subtleties, actors are amazing. They're really great ones like that. They can just create all these little subtleties, you know. And you're reading it. It's really great. So my question is, maybe there's nothing to this, but for personal reasons, I'm kind of curious about this idea of controlling your perception of reality. Came up a couple times very clearly. I'm wondering like what the inspiration was behind that, how much that has to do with this story. Maybe there's no there, but that's just something that's caught my attention and I'm interested in for reasons of my own.
That's cool that you picked up on that. That's like it's something that we liked because we felt that one of the main sort of thrusts of the story is kind of like, as you come to understand James's character over the course of the movies, he's dealing with a lot. He's got a lot. They're running from something. Like he's running from something. Something dark and traumatic has happened to him, and the idea of being able to cope with trauma in that way by just sort of like mentally tricking yourself into a different sort of perception of reality to us is like something that his character, it's like as it's presented in the movie, it's like a little bit of like, it's like kind of like bad advice that he gets, you know, from these people, or it's like, it's not really an honest way to deal with your problems, you know. And I think like in some ways that's sort of what informs his journey and the trajectory and the ending, and you know, that's sort of like what he's been attempting to do the whole time, but finding himself unable to do. And then on a thematic / cinematic level, like we kind of like that as a sort of metaphor for like the film or film in general, because you know, we all watch these movies in a way where we just accept them as like the story of the movie, is like the reality of the movie, but everything we're watching is like a controlled experience that like has been decided upon by someone, and so like for us, like the malleability of that is really interesting, and something that we wanted to sort of play with in this movie, in terms of like sort of creating those questions about like, I'm not sure what reality I'm being given right now, or like what sort of like what to grasp onto to sort of like indicate like what's real and what's not. So yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit. Thanks.
So, well, I think that's all the questions. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for coming. So thank you very much. Oh, yes. What did I say? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Good night.